Hello, welcome to 21 This Week. I'm Susan Heltemes, filling in for Casey Aiken. Coming up next, what is the Pike District? Senate race is a snoozer. The presidential race plods on, and is there any good news out there? We're joined today by our panel of keen political observers. Civil rights activist Vernon Ricks, Bill Askinazi, former Assistant Secretary of Business for Governor Bob Early, former Republican Delegate Matt Mossburg, and welcome for the first time today, Matt. We're happy to have you. And former Democratic Majority Leader John Hurson. Stay tuned for these topics and more coming up next. A story about the 1.7-mile stretch along Rockville Pike that includes the former White Flint Mall and the new Pike and Rose development made it into the New York Times this week. Using buzzwords like smart growth, walkability, and mixed use, the article discussed the struggle of the area to find an identity. Bill, this mixed-use enclave, newly named Pike Place, would love to lure the Marriott Corporation, but currently has a glut of apartments that's really lowered the projected rental prices and includes some of the worst traffic congestion in the county. Proposed plans for a slimmer tree-lined boulevard that relies on walking, transit, and cycling, ironically has a Porsche dealership in the mix. Will this 30-year plan that's projected to grow the economy by billions of dollars, is it going to succeed, Bill?
I think it will. People need to be patient. This is a huge economic endeavor. It's generational. It's also transformational. We all remember Rockville Pike in the old days, but we have to compete. In economic development, you have to compete. Compete with the resurgence of Tyson's Corner and Georgetown, et cetera. Don't forget, this has survived lawsuits. My hat's off to the local communities as well for getting together and the legislators for their persistence in getting this done. But it will succeed.
It sounds like I won't be around, though. Maybe none of us. Okay, Vernon, it was announced this week that the Federal Fourth Circuit Court in Richmond is going to hear the appeal of the White Flint owners, that is the Tower Company and the Lerner Enterprises, in December regarding the $31 million awarded earlier to Lord & Taylor for their lease being broken at White Flint. As a longtime resident of Montgomery County, can this proposed Pike District succeed?
Well, I remember Rockville Pike when it was one lane each way. And so as I look at it now, they talk about walkability. That's the only thing going to be left because you won't be able to drive. They're putting trees down the middle, all this development. And I agree with Bill that development, we have to move on. But in fact, it'll be so overdeveloped that at some point we'll have to pipe sunshine in and be like.
But it is. It's a cement cavern, though, from D.C. all the way to Frederick County.
So
right.
you know, hey,
well, new roads are coming in too. They're going to be building as part of the master plan, miles and miles of
where are they
roads.
going to put the roads?
So, Matt, what do you think about all of this?
Look, once again, I have to be the free market guy here. Centralized planning in the end doesn't work. It didn't work in the Soviet Union, it doesn't work in Montgomery County, no matter how many billions you have. This area has always had an artificially buttressed economy because we are so reliant on the federal government. So it's amazing that we can have these kind of discussions, but this is all in a bubble. So maybe it will, maybe it won't. My bigger concern is that Montgomery County at the local level has lacked the leadership it needs for the past decade. We have a county council that basically does not know how to spend money well. We have a county council that is not financially responsible. I'm not talking about being fiscally prudent, like be a strong conservative, but just somebody who can, who knows how to manage money. We need somebody.
Well, as long as we keep pop deals on Rockville Pike, I mean, what's
yeah, that's
the
true.
problem?
Well,
That's a good point.
I know we're going to talk about this some more, but
Yeah.
we've got another topic to cover.
Okay.
And in an election that has garnered hardly any press, seven-term Democratic Congressman Chris Van Hollen from Montgomery County, no less, is seeking to defeat relatively unknown second-term Republican delegate Kathy Szeliga from Baltimore County to fill the vacancy, of course, that was created with the retirement of U.S. Senator Barbara Mikulski. So, Matt, what do you know about Szeliga, and does she have a chance to defeat Van Hollen in this David versus Goliath, and she's like 30 points down.
Right. One word, yawn. That's pretty much how I look at this election. And David and Goliath, not a good analogy. I think more like the Roadrunner and the Coyote would probably be more analogous for this.
An analogy is an analogy. Good one.
I've known Chris since '93. He is, without question, and we're of course complete opposites politically. He is, without question, one of the smartest, most astute, brilliant politicians. And Chris is going to win, and he's going to win big. And you know what? Even as a Republican, I can say he's going to do a good job for Maryland in the U.S. Senate.
Well, now, John, Chris Van Hollen, as he just said, is considered one of the most politically smartest, astute politicians around, who's taken on titans of politics like former state senator Patty Scherr, Kennedy Aaron delegate Mark Shriver, and lest we not forget the beloved Congresswoman Connie Morella. He's won them all. He has money. He has a very wide Democratic margin in registration, and is considered even by his enemies as he's a nice guy.
Yeah, he is.
So what do you predict for this Chris Van Hollen after this blowout that's anticipated when he gets to the U.S.
So we actually should talk about that because he's going to win. We all agree he's going to win. He's way ahead. And, what kind of person is Chris going to be in the U.S. Senate?
And the answer is?
Well, it's very interesting. Former Senator Howie Dennis, when he went to the Maryland legislature, he always described going to the House as, get a good book to read and keep quiet. And
The
when
House
you get
of
to
Representatives.
the House, the delegates,
Yeah.
the House of Delegates. And when you get to the Senate, you have to become a personality.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Chris has to face right now.
Sure.
He's going to win. So what kind of person is he going to be? Is he going to be a pragmatist like, the previous U.S. senators? Or is he going to be Elizabeth Warren? Or is he going to be Ted Cruz?
What do you think?
What does that mean?
I think he can encompass all of those things.
Yeah.
Chris, I've known Chris for many years, and I've worked with him, and I just think that he will be the person to bring all of those personalities together. He can work with people. He can step across the aisle. He's done that, and so I'm looking forward to him winning.
I would
wait a
just say
minute.
I think it's harder in the Senate,
Right.
Because you are in a spotlight, and he worked for William Donald Schaefer. He worked for Matthias. But he's got a background of being a pragmatist.
Right.
Right.
So I just wonder
Well,
how it's going to shape
I
up.
want to get Bill in here. Is he Chris to you and a friend like everybody else?
Of course. Chris is personal.
Chris is Chris. All we have to say is Chris.
He's a
and
powerhouse. He's got great grassroots, etc. Just a shout out to Kathy, though. It's not her time, but she's got a great political future. She's really run a decent campaign from behind. She has come from a military family. She's got a lot of experience as an authentic blue-collar candidate. And I think in the future she'll be a
And
good
what we
candidate.
learned on Kojo Nami today, she was a minimum wage worker when she first got out of
She
high
lived in a
school.
homeless shelter for a while.
That sounds
She's
good.
authentic.
Okay,
Yeah.
then we got to
But
stop
she's
there.
not a
But
good
we're
campaigner.
But we're going to be right back after a short break, so don't go away. Presidential race, opponents monitor speeches, and they re-monitor speeches. They re-watch and reread interviews and hunker down to uncover morsels on the other guy in the campaign to take the Oval Office. Time magazine quoted an unnamed source in an article about the advantage the Clinton campaign has this year regarding this search for info on the opponent. And I quote this source now from Time magazine. Here it's a fire hose. He can set himself on fire at breakfast, kill a nun at lunch, and waterboard a puppy in the afternoon. And that doesn't even get us into prime time. So, Bill, Trump's not fared so well since the first debate and was overpowered by the performance but not defended by his VP, Governor Mike Pence, this week, who frequently denied the damning assertions made by Trump. Do you think Donald Trump has the ability to do better Sunday night and turn the tide in this race against Clinton?
Look, Governor Pence's performance stylistically was exactly the shot in the arm that Trump needed. It was impressive by any measure. He was cool, he was calm, he was collected.
He looked good.
He was a statesman. Contrast that with Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine was the 8th grader who was over-caffeinated and wanted a pat on his head for all of his right answers. And that's the problem with the Hillary Clinton campaign with Kaine. It's too over-eager. They're not authentic. If they were to be authentic and real, I'm tired about hearing politicians say that they grew up with their father working in a coal mine and their mother used to bake biscuits till 3 in the morning. Americans don't want that. The authenticity
wait a minute.
is what we want.
Wait a minute.
So it's the real story.
Wait a minute. So, John,
Okay.
Bill never answered the
I
question.
will finish it just briefly. Let me give you a
Okay,
second.
briefly.
I think that if Donald Trump contains his ego, if he restrains himself and sticks to the issues about Hillary's, terrible foreign policy and giving us Syria and Afghanistan and giving us Russia, then we got a shot at rejuvenating a campaign.
His ego is
now-
if the sun doesn't come up
okay,
tomorrow.
wait a minute,
It's
John,
just not going to happen.
John, although Hillary Clinton may not be loved, her aplomb at the first debate showed her to be knowledgeable, she was composed, and presidential in stature. And she was even funny at
Not
times, which
presidential in
she's not accused of. But the proof of that has been shown by a marked rise in the figures in her polling. And in Maryland, it's 63-27.
it's irrelevant
Clinton,
here.
yeah. So is Clinton going to be able to maintain this
right.
lead and become our first female president?
So first of all, let me just start off by saying I don't think the first debate means the second debate's going to be the same. Okay, she did a fine job there. I think Trump was kind of off the rails at the last half of the first debate. Doesn't mean that's what's going to happen in the second debate. We know that with the Obama-Mitt Romney debate. I mean, Obama did much better in the second debate. So I don't think there's any prescription that she's going to do fine in the second debate. I think the second debate is going to be very important. If Trump does really well, which I think you're delusional,
He
that
can't-
he won't, that he'll stay on the
He
rails.
can't be as bad as the person.
No, but
got
I
a
do
good
think he's.
advice.
I think he's going to be. I think that's
Pence
delusional.
What?
Pence threw him under the
Oh,
bus.
was anybody-
He didn't support him in anything he
He
did.
he was there for Pence
Pence was a good
2020.
politician.
But can I say
Pence
something?
is a good politician, but look at as I looked at the debate or discussion or whatever it was, that Pence reminded me of somebody who was so cool and calm that he was selling swampland somewhere.
Okay, so Matt, what do you have to
quiet
throw
and
in
so
here?
smooth.
Look, I mean, I don't know if anybody else out there, but I'm watching the vice presidential debate, saying, am I the only Republican here who realizes we have the wrong person running? Why aren't Kaine and Pence running? That would have been it would have been not as fun, but you just felt like, boy, we have the wrong
But it
candidates
is
up there.
what it is.
It is what it is.
Unfortunately,
He stepped
I
up,
know.
And he did his job.
He did.
But you're talking about the last debate.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the next debate happening on Sunday.
And it is
which
a
is
town hall format,
town
which is
hall, which is
totally
going to be
different.
weird for Trump, I
Yeah,
think.
that's
I mean, he's going to get.
Authenticity again.
I
There's
agree.
That magic word.
I agree.
Authenticity. Who's the real? And
Right.
whatever the substance is, let's put aside. Stylistically, this is Trump's form. Reaching out to people.
I don't
No,
know.
hold on a
about
second.
that.
I
I don't know about that.
Listen, I think here's the issue: is that the only reason why Hillary Clinton is doing so well is because she's running against Donald Trump. I think if you put a marginal, lukewarm candidate with some solid principles and could halfway communicate,
Clinton
you
is
could beat
smart.
her.
She's a smart person. She
Yeah,
does her
I
homework.
think you underestimate
you
her
can't
talents.
underestimate
Honestly,
Clinton.
I really do.
She's a lady of style and substance.
You guys
But
don't
what-
see that.
what-
I think some middle Americans do see that. Some independent voters see
But
that.
I have something I want to throw in again, and I say this every week. Donald Trump has not been endorsed by any newspaper. And if you're in Cleveland and your newspaper, you read your Cleveland newspaper and they say, this week the Atlantic Monthly endorsed her.
so let's
and
say-
wait a minute, and 30 former today
I know, but
elected.
here's the point. Here's the point.
Not even
Those
his own
those
party.
endorsements are only going to matter to people who haven't made up their mind.
That's right.
Okay.
There's like 25-30% of those.
And it actually helps him. Not getting endorsed helps his base
media
become more
has been
energized.
trashed the entire campaign by both sides.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially
right.
Trump.
What value does a media endorsement have in these times?
I just don't think it's gonna
15
make that
years
big
ago,
a
It's
it may have
not.
made a
It's
difference.
not.
Well, this is the question that came up today. Rudolph Giuliani said he's going to take his the next month off from work, so he can stump for Trump full time.
He's working?
and he has
He might as well slump for Trump.
Where's he working?
And today, There were pictures in the media of Ted Cruz phone banking
Wow.
for Trump. So this is the question. When you compare that to the kind of people that Hillary Clinton has out there, she has the Obamas, she has Elizabeth Warren, she has Bernie Sanders, she has almost any senator and or congressman she wants out there for her. That, plus Joe Biden and Tim Kaine, that is going to make a difference.
You're going back to old politics.
But-
This is an entirely new election. Do you think millennials care if Senator Warren gets on the phone and makes a robocall?
No.
Or better yet, Al Gore. I mean, you know,
The environmentalists, though, who are thinking about
I
going
know,
elsewhere.
but they're
Now,
not.
this
They're
is-
not going
But the
elsewhere.
millennials better start caring because they're interested in
Correct.
certain issues that
Right.
Clinton is pushing and that Bernie Sanders brings to the table.
Or
So-
Michelle Obama.
Or Michelle Obama. So they better start caring. They better come out and do the right thing when they get to the polls. And they know what it is. We don't have to tell them here. They're smart enough.
And
so.
I totally agree with you, and I don't think Al Gore is going to make a difference. But I do think, you know, I have a daughter who's a millennial who supported Bernie Sanders, and she's like, okay, I got to make this horrible decision
Yeah.
between, you know, these two candidates. I think she'll vote for Hillary, but I'm not sure.
But I think that
But it'll
Trump,
happen. It's slowly happening.
Trump has
more than-
done so much damage, though, to women voters, which are a critical part of this election. And I don't think he can turn that train around.
You know what he should say, and he hasn't said?
I'm
'Cause you're-
sorry.
'cause you're right. He wears it on his sleeve. He comes out with these horrible remarks. And there's no excuse for it.
And they keep coming
You can't
out
defend
of-
it. But this is what you could, you know, I was thinking, what could he possibly say? First of all, he should apologize, which every politician should do.
He's never said, "I'm
And
sorry."
then he should say, listen, I'm not a polished politician. I sometimes I speak before I think. I respect women, and here's why. I employ hundreds of women in my organization. 3 of my top executives are women, and then have testimonials from the women. He's got to repair the
And
damage.
I've had-
Bill,
But he
He
hasn't
hasn't
Bill,
done
took
it.
Can I just say
women.
something to Bill?
Yeah.
Because I heard this exact same thing at lunch today from my brother, which is like, this is what he should say. He should apologize. He should say, I employ women. And I looked at my brother and I said,
What
he's
plan?
not going to do that.
Okay,
He's not
so
even listening to
his
guys,
handlers.
He's not even
guys,
listening to
we're
his
gonna
handlers.
Cut it up there, but this
Yeah.
topic is going to be on the table every week.
Maybe Trump should call Bill. Maybe you
I-
should.
Vernon, that's it. Okay,
That's a good
now
point.
Americans across the spectrum are turning off their TVs and throwing out newspapers for a lack of good news. Now, I was personally pleased to learn this week that from October 16th to the 30th, you can go to the Montgomery County Libraries and erase your library fees and fines by donating a can of good non-perishable food for every dollar owed to the Montgomery County Public Library System. It's going to go to the Manna Food Center. Last year they got 6,000 pounds of food donated. And by the way, anybody can go there and do it, even if you don't own a fine. There are 21, 24 libraries, something like that. Find one. So now I've challenged each of our panelists to come up with some good news. And Nat, we're going to start with you.
I am. Well, I want to give a personal shout out to one of my former colleagues in the House of Delegates, now Senator Cheryl Kagan, class of '94 freshman represent. She went to work a few weeks ago for the Community Ministries of Rockville, and in a county that is as wealthy as Montgomery County, it's good to see that she's staying in touch and assisting the folks in our county who are at the most risk, who are the most vulnerable. So if she calls you or gets in touch with you to ask you to support community ministries, be generous.
John.
Just good news. We're sitting here on Friday night. I know that screws up people watching at other dates, but you know, Friday night, all of South Florida was spared from Hurricane Matthew. I mean, that's huge, not just for the people in South Florida, but also for the rest of the country that pays insurance rates.
That's right.
So it's very, very important.
Bill, your good news.
Well, we have an increasingly distressing and disturbing homeless situation in Montgomery County, and there's a real golden nugget, and that's the Stepping Stones homeless shelter in Rockville. And what they do is they take young families with children, and they network them not only for job training, for food, and for the immediate 30 days. So recently, a graduate got a job after being trained. She was back on her feet, and she took her kid, and now that she's going to be working in North Carolina.
Wow.
That's good news for Stepping Stone.
Vernon, your good news.
We may have a winner in the new Montgomery County Public Schools Superintendent, Dr. Smith. He seems to have some good strategies in place to address the minority achievement gap. So we're looking forward to working with him.
I can't believe it. Everybody should feel good, and we haven't read about most of those things in the press. So
Yeah.
we're going to be back in a moment with parting shots. That is their And now with parting shots, Vernon.
My parting shot is congratulations to Montgomery Community Media on having gone to HD television now, and I look forward to it. They're on Comcast and RCN, I believe it is now, HD, but maybe Verizon will catch up soon.
Okay, Bill, you're next.
Well, Governor Larry Hogan has a 71% approval rate in this state. Against, for both parties endorse him. I got to tell you, this guy has beaten cancer. His fortitude is amazing. His work ethic is amazing. He's brought people together, and his economic development and hard push to bring communities together is effective. I got to tell you, John Delaney is going to have a tough road in 4 years to take him on. We're looking at 8 years of Governor Hogan's policies, and this is a good thing for all Marylanders. Yeah.
Okay, so Matt, this is your first time, so
Yes.
give us a great parting shot.
Oh my goodness. Well, actually, this isn't to follow up with what Bill said. One of the things that Governor Hogan does have too is that that political acumen to really understand, how to govern smartly as a Republican. And when asked, I got to get back to the federal election. Asked about Trump, if you'd be going to the convention, he said, no, I don't like the guy. And so I'm going to make my last appeal to Republicans out there for this. My parting shot is realize something about this election, that you basically have a choice between two liberals, one who knows what she's doing, the other who doesn't know what he's doing. Trump is not a conservative. He never has been. And I would just appeal to Republicans, stick with the things that got us here: free market, individual liberty, strong military, and limited government. And stop looking at personalities and go back to principle.
Okay, so John, you've got cleanup today. What is your parting shot?
You know what I'm going to say? It brings us all together on this panel, which is to shout out to the Board of Elections. I mean, they have a big job coming up, which is to handle a national election, not just in Montgomery County, but across the state. And I don't think people appreciate how much work they do. Getting volunteers to man all the polling places. This is something that we all depend on in our political process. You look at other countries, which have many, many challenges when they have elections. I'm very familiar with a group called IFES, which is an American nonprofit organization that goes overseas to make sure that elections are conducted. This is the basis of our democracy, to have strong administration of elections. And we sometimes don't appreciate that. It's, we all show up at the polling place. Yeah, we sign our name, we go. I'm doing early voting. But, these people keep control of this, and we end up respecting it. That's one of the concerns I have about the presidential election, is that one of the presidential candidates is talked about being a rigged system. Well, I'll tell you, in Montgomery County, it ain't rigged. We got Republicans, we got Democrats running the show. So my shout out is to the Board of Elections. They do an incredibly good job.
I want to follow up on that. If you are able to work the polls, they are desperate for poll workers, Republicans, Democrats, Independents. They also need Spanish speakers, and they can use teenagers to help at the polls and to assist, and of course they're the brains behind all this stuff. So if you are a kid or your parent who wants your child to do something on election day or can help, call 311, ask for the Board of Elections, and we will get through this. So
Along with that, Susan, they also get credits.
They get credit, that's right. That's right. So, thank you for being here today. This has been an interesting conversation. Thank you, Matt, for coming. We hope to see you more. And Shana Tova to our Jewish viewers, and our thoughts and prayers are with the residents along the Atlantic coast. As Hurricane Matthew continues to churn, we can't forget it. The presidential election is now just 4 weeks away. And until next week, follow 21 This Week on social media, and see you again for Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show 21 this week. And I'm Susan Heltemes. Bye for now.